Warning: the following content may contain distressing topics such as rape and sexual assault of the drugged kind. Viewer discretion is advised. When I was in university, I took a class that mainly focused on Shakespeare, more specifically his comedic, if not romantic plays, with one of them being Midsummer Night's Dream. Now, you probably know the main plot, especially since it was mostly caused by a love potion that several characters get influenced by, but even the plot plays around this in a more whimsical and relatively lighthearted way. However, one part that stood out to me, and not necessarily in a good way, is how one of the characters named Demetrius also gets inflicted with a love potion thanks to Puck's actions. And unlike the others, he's the only one who never gets the effects worn off, and stays with Helena, who had been pining for him the entire time, and also takes advantage of the situation just to be with him. While his fate can be diminished by how he kept acting like an abhorrent admirer to Hermia, despite Hermia not returning his feelings at all and being with love with Lysander, it does come across as a bit disturbing, if not really creepy, especially since he's basically brainwashed into falling in love with someone against his will. Though there have been modern attempts to rectify this particular scene by claiming that the love potion caused Demetrius to realize his feelings for Helena and get together with her willingly, it does come across as a stretch at times, especially considering the original intention of that scene. In fact, during my class discussions for tutorial sessions, I asked the question on whether love potions really do make people fall in love, or are they nothing more than glorified date rape drugs or mind control serums of some kind, which actually caused my classmates to agree that love potions aren't necessarily a good thing. Even my old TA of the class also agreed that the usage of love potions is rather unethical, if not outright dangerous at times, especially if they were used to straight up brainwash and sexually assault victims. Then again, it's kind of similar to an old medieval tale known as Tristan and Isolde, where the plot actually gets kickstarted because of a love potion the titular characters accidentally drank when Tristan was taking Isolde to his uncle for her to wed. Of course, when the potion's effects wear off, instead of breaking up due to the unfortunate implication, supposedly they decide to stay together because at some point they genuinely fall in love with one another despite the potion's effects. Guess in a way, they pulled a Shrek plot, albeit with a love potion added to the mix, though it does come across as iffy, if not uncomfortable, especially when one ponders on whether it was the love potion talking or their actual hearts, so to speak. Speaking of Shrek, I remember a rather disturbing line from Shrek 2 where Harold speaks with Fairy Godmother and she gives him the love potion for Fiona to drink so she can force the princess to be with Charming. Of course, Harold thankfully realizes how wrong that is and points out that forcing people to fall in love against their will with stuff like that is inherently wrong. And do you know what her response was? Why not? I do it all the time. Yeah, that was her response, or at least the paraphrase version. And considering how we see Fairy Godmother making said love potion in a large cauldron using ingredients such as desire, passion, and lust, which if you saw my video about the deadly sin lusts, you know that's not something you take lightly. Good thing Harold swapped the teas just in time. Who knows what effect the potion would have done to Fiona had she drank it. Makes you wonder how many relationships Fairy Godmother manufactured, per se, especially with her magic, or even her potions from the factory she owns. Even the movie Strange Magic portrayed love potions as being rather bad and easily misused, if not abused, as the true villain of the movie, Roland, sought to use its power on Marianne after she understandably dumped him the moment she found out he cheated on her, and right before they got married too. Even later on, we see the effects of the love potion causing many talking animals and other forest creatures being kept in cages by the Bog King because the effects of the love potion made them a tad bit crazy and suffering from love sickness. It was enough to make even Marianne disturbed, and this is before she finds that her sister Dawn also got affected, albeit by complete accident. The fact that even the creator of the love potion, who is none other than the Sugar Plum Fairy herself, actually tries to warn the others about abusing its powers, which are proven true since Roland outright splashes Marianne with that stuff at the and in order to force her to fall for him, which is most certainly not okay. Fortunately, it had no effect since Marianne had fallen in love with Bob King by the time it happened, and responds by punching Roland for daring to pull something like that on her. It should also be noted that even the Bog King believed that the love potion should be destroyed since it's more trouble than it's worth, though imprisoning Sugar Plum probably wasn't the best idea. Interestingly enough, the movie was confirmed to be inspired by Midsummer's Night's Dream, and like Demetrius, Roland ends up suffering from the effects of the love potion by falling in love with a female insect, though in this case he arguably deserved it even more than Demetrius did, as I highly doubt Demetrius would have resorted to such dishonorable methods to get Hermia to be with him. Interestingly enough, during my final years at university, I took a course called Violence in Religion, and as the name implied, it was about religion and how it often had darker and more violent themes to them, as many spiritual beliefs usually had. In this case, I had to learn a bit about witchcraft and even read an online copy of this old grimoire spellbook known as the Picatrix as part of my assignment. Of course, before you say anything, no, I did not perform any of the spells, given how weird and gross some of them were. Anyways, in that particular course, it featured a segment regarding the dark history of witchcraft and how, despite the usual stereotypes, the majority of witches actually do not practice making love potions, nor do they condone it, as even they are aware of the unsettling implications regarding the usage of such a thing. If actual or apparent witches consider love potions to be bad, ethically speaking, then that should give you an idea of how dangerous it is, and makes one wonder why they were even used to begin with. If anything else, the usage of love potions is no better than date rape drugs and roofies, and boy, do we all know how bad those things are. In my opinion, love potions are nothing more than trouble, and are more likely to cause problems of both the emotional and psychological kinds, especially when it comes to the matter of consensual relationships of the more intimate and romantic kind. The name itself is basically a misnomer, as it doesn't really portray true or real love per se, because it effectively brainwashes or mind controls someone against their will while stripping them of their autonomy for others to use, in a sense. But to end this video on a lighter note, I actually found out something interesting for Maleficent, the live-action movie version. Turns out, according to supplementary materials, her parents are actually named Hermia and Lysander after the main human characters from Midsummer's Night's Dreams, which just so happened to famously feature fairies. Ironically, Hermia and Lysander were humans in the original play rather than fairies, but still, the reference is pretty neat, which I actually told my old TA about, who was very happy to hear about this reference.